Hi, I'm Connor Jones.
I'm Micah Tomasella.
And this is Culture Brief, a Dennis Informed podcast where we navigate the constant top stream of news, stories, politics, sports, pop culture. We're doing it all from a Christian perspective. And Micah, the government shut down and reopened between our recordings. It's a miracle, right?
That's true. It's a miracle. Yeah, I had a partial shutdown. Now the government's back open, but it could shut down in 2 weeks. So we'll see what happens. So we have a loaded show as always. We're going to talk about the Grammys and what happened there, the cultural implications of that, the Super Bowl too. Super Bowl's kind of becoming less about the actual game and more about everything else, but I guess that's kind of normal. And then going to kind of just do a geopolitical, political, and cultural roundup having to do with the Epstein files, what the Clintons have to do with it, Iran, what's going on there, Don Lemon, what's happening there with his arrest, and a whole lot more. So let's jump into The Brief.
The Brief. Yeah, you're right. The Super Bowl is kind of like all about the game to an extent, at least for a big portion of America, but for the rest of America, man, it's about the people that are there. It's the performances. It's the halftime show, pregame, postgame, everything that happens on social media with it. I would say this week, specifically, Micah, I've really been thinking about this. It's kind of like a big monocultural week. A lot of people say the monoculture is dying. 50 million people used to watch every episode of MASH together in America and then talk about it the next day at the office. It's gotten more sporadic. This week, though, between the Super Bowl, these Grammy speeches that we're going to break down here in a minute that have just been all over social media, and then the Olympics, this is a moment where all of America kind of comes together and talks about the same things. I'm excited to see how that delves into the cultural conversation and then where faith plays a role into each of those things. But specifically, we can start with the Grammys because that happened this past Sunday. And man, it's caused a stir. There's been some positive things out of it. There's been some negative things out of it. But everybody has opinions, that's for sure. And every celebrity has their opinions. And they made a way to make their opinions known on the stage in their acceptance speeches.
Do.
I don't know, Mike, did you watch any of the Grammys? I'm going to go ahead and guess.
Not.
I figured you did not.
Absolutely not. No. In fact, I didn't even know it was happening. Yes, I didn't know it was happening, but I kind of make it a point to not support it because it has just become about everything other than the art form, being actually recognized. It's been so politicized, and I know exactly how celebrities feel about their politics, and they like to tell me, and I have no interest, for the most part, in what their opinions are about it. And that's just my own personal opinion.
No, I feel that. I think a lot of people feel that way too. They're like, I don't need to see all this. They may like the performances. Some of the performances are good. Like Justin Bieber performed. It was great. Alex Warren was there.
He needs to put some clothes on, but it was a great performance.
I would like Justin Bieber to have a shirt on. That would be nice. Yes.
Or wear pants. That was
some
crazy.
Pants. Man. He had shorts, but yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Bruno Mars, there's great performances. There are really talented people there, but you're right. Totally. It doesn't end up, no one thinks about who's winning the awards. You think about all the controversial moments. You think about the big spectacles. I will say one cool performance that happened was Post Malone and Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Slash on the guitar. They performed War Pigs in a tribute to Ozzy Osbourne. Just an incredible performance. I really enjoyed that one.
Okay.
And that
I want to go back and
watching.
watch some of these performances. I've seen a few, but I didn't see that one.
No, that one's really good. Dude, Post Malone, the way he transforms his voice to sound like Ozzy, so cool. I'm going to link videos to all of these things, speeches and performances that I'm going to mention here in our show notes so you can find them if you have not seen them. A couple awards that were won. Billie Eilish and Phineas, that's her brother, they won Song of the Year for Wildflower, which is pretty popular, obviously.
Yeah.
That's why they won. And then last year's Super Bowl halftime performer was Kendrick Lamar. He came away with 5 Grammys on Sunday night, including Record of the Year for the song Luther, which one of the viral moments was Cher, legend in her own right, coming out and flubbing that announcement and saying the wrong winner there. She said Luther, I can't remember the full name, but it was a guy who actually died in 2005 that the song is about. Yeah, she was a little meandering. She seemed a little lost, dazed, and confused. But she's a legend, so she gets away with it,
Sure.
And then this year's Super Bowl halftime performer, who is at the center of every conversation this week, is obviously Bad Bunny. He did win Album of the Year, and he used his speech to go on a pro-immigration and anti-rice tangent. We're going to hit on that here in just a minute. But he wasn't the only one. The night was just enmeshed in political and social signaling from these celebrities. A lot of them showed up with pins on their chest that say "Ice Out" in black and white. A lot of people did that, and they're just making their statement. No, that it's their right. They can do it. They've got the platform.
Totally. You're allowed to do it, and I'm allowed not to care about what you say.
Exactly. I think that's how people can feel. But at the same time, they have a platform, and so they're
it's
like,
not illegal. They can do
No.
that. Sure.
They can absolutely do it. Billie Eilish, in her acceptance speech for winning Best Song, said that no one is illegal on stolen land, and then cussed out ICE. That was censored on the TV broadcast. It bleeps. Yeah, that was a statement that caused a lot of uproar. And some people even started pointing out that Billie Eilish herself has a multi-million-dollar home in Los Angeles that sits on land historically belonging to the Tongva tribe, the Native American tribe there in LA. And the people of the
Maybe
Tongva
she'll
tribe
give
were
it
like,
back to
yeah,
them.
that is. They're like, that's our land, technically. We're grateful she's bringing attention to it. They're like not going to pursue anything with this, but just kind of one of those double standards that can be mistaken. And I don't even know if the phrase "no one is illegal on stolen land" makes a lot of sense in what she's trying to say. If you're saying that ICE is just kicking out people in a land that was taken away from Native Americans, all that, I just don't understand how that applies fully to the conversation around ICE and Alex Preddy's death and everything, because ultimately this is about enforcing laws that are American. This is America at this point. Like that, no matter who had the land originally, we're now in a new era.
It's an emotional argument, not really based in logic and facts. But this is such a lightning rod story, like we've talked about, that of course there's strong emotional reaction.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. Well, she wasn't the only one. Bad Bunny, as I said, man, this guy is the center of everything this week, between winning all these Grammys and his speech, and then all the talk about him leading up to the Super Bowl halftime performance. Man, he is right at the center of every conversation with football and music and all of that. And he took his moment, man. He won awards. Good for him. He's got good music. I don't dislike his music. I don't know what any of it says because I don't speak Spanish.
Right.
But it's music that, you're out on the boat. Yeah, throw some Bad Bunny on. He's got a good beat, and he's going to be introduced to much of the American public this week. But as a central figure whose audience is largely Latin American, he is Puerto Rican himself. He knew that everyone was going to be looking to him to see what he says in this speech because he knew he was going to win. So he had it ready to go. And man, he kept it short, but he kept it punchy. He said, "Before I say thanks to God, I'm going to say ICE out." That led to about 30 seconds of applause, standing ovations, and he just stood there and took it. And then he continued saying, "We're not savage, we're not animals, we're not aliens, we are humans, and we are Americans. The hate gets more powerful with more hate. The only thing that is more powerful than hate is love. So please, we need to be different. If we fight, we have to do it with love." Micah, thoughts on his comments?
I think I don't have a big problem with his comments, actually. I think there has been such strong rhetoric on both sides about this that leads to more hate, kind of like Bad Bunny talked about here, and actually kind of calling upon, hey, the only force more powerful is love. Now, I mean, again, I would say, like, what is your love grounded in? He did say he was going to thank God. So, I don't know what his relationship with Jesus is, but I don't have a huge problem with these comments. I expected him to say something, and he definitely could have been more decisive in what he said. I definitely like what he said better than what Billie Eilish said, personally.
Yeah, I did too. And obviously coming from somebody of a heritage where he's speaking on behalf of really the Southern Hemisphere here. And everybody, his audience.
But he feels like he represents this group of people who feel voiceless. I mean, you could argue, what's the right platform for that? Is virtue signaling in that environment really the best way to get it? But these people are given a captive audience and they want to make a difference. So okay,
yeah, you're exactly right. I do wish he said at the beginning. He said, "Before I say thanks to God, I'm going to say ICE out." I would say, man, if you're going to present a message like that, thank God first, always. That is your first thing. Don't hold off, because then he didn't even get around to it. By the time he got through his ICE speech, it was time for him to get off the stage. They rushed him off, so he didn't even get around to it. But yeah, you're right. I think he struck a fine line. He was like, I want to say my piece without being super offensive. People are going to be offended either way. Like, that's just the nature of it. But man, he knows what he's doing, and he didn't even host an American. Or I should say, he didn't host a concert on mainland America last year. He's not doing it this year either. He did 30 performances in his home territory of Puerto Rico, which is the U.S., so a lot of people travel to Puerto Rico to go see his shows. But he knows what he's doing here, and that's why he's got the Super Bowl, because he's the biggest artist in the world right now besides Taylor Swift. And that's why the NFL wanted to bring him in. I mean, people are going to be upset about it because he doesn't sing in English. He may not have any English performances, but at the end of the day, this is a business decision for the NFL. And as we move into talking about the Super Bowl, that's just a point I want to make. Now, is it a good business decision? We will find out, because we'll see if the ratings go up or down because of this. We'll see. I don't think it's going to be a bad one. I think that they're going to be just fine. The NFL is and the Super Bowl is. And
there have been some terrible Super Bowl performances in the past. I doubt his will be terrible.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. The other things with the Super Bowl that people are upset about, I'm just presenting this. I'm not saying I'm upset about it. This is just what we're seeing in culture right now is Green Day is doing the pregame performance. They have been very anti-Republican in their speech in previous years and anti-Trump and all that. So there's a lot of people who are upset about that, and that's fine. They can be. Trump himself, talking about Green Day and Bad Bunny, said he's not going to the game. He went to the Super Bowl last year. He's not going this year because talking about these musical performers, he said, I'm anti them. I think it's a terrible choice. All it does is sow hatred. Terrible. So he's making his opinion very loud and clear to the NFL. But you know what? He's also been complaining about the kickoff rules this year, and nothing's changed there. So I'm not sure the president has that much leeway over what the NFL does. The national anthem being sung by Charlie Puth, that's going to be great. That man is a talent beyond talents.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Watch his Instagrams. Go watch Charlie Puth's Instagram videos. And then Bad Bunny. Just one of the things that, as we've discussed, people are upset about is the fact that the music's going to be in Spanish. They're also upset because he's alluded to the idea, and it's been reported that he might show up in a dress. That would not be incredible, like a female dress. This is something he's done in performances in the past to kind of like support the LGBTQ community. That may not be received all that well. And then ICE is apparently going to be there. Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security, has said that they would be all over the Super Bowl. Her right-hand man, Corey Lewandowski, has even scolded the NFL for selecting Bad Bunny, saying that he is somebody who seems to hate America so much. So I don't know. Roger Goodell, he's the NFL commissioner. He's kind of heard a lot of this backlash. He says, I understand. And he said that Bad Bunny understood that the platform he was on, and this platform is huge, should be used to unite people and be able to bring people together with their creativity. I think Bad Bunny understands that, and I think he'll have a great performance. So Roger Goodell kind of putting out there in the media, like, I think he's going to be great. I really hope he doesn't do anything overtly political, because that could be bad. One of the things, Micah, that we saw last year that came out of the decision for Bad Bunny was a lot of people saying, okay, we need to do an alternative halftime show because this guy is anti-American, all of that. And that turned into Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's organization, saying we're going to host one. And it became a whole thing of like, maybe we'll bring in some faith-based musicians like Forrest Frank and Corey Asbury and all of that to come in and do almost a worship service. That idea really fizzled out. It's now really becoming just a big right-wing thing. And there's going to be a performance. They're doing an alternative programming. It's going to be on their streaming service with Turning Point USA. It's going to be on like Daily Wire Plus and Real America's Voice, all these places. It's featuring Kid Rock and Brantley Gilbert, Lee Brice, and Gabby Barrett. So if you're interested in that, you can go watch that. I think you may see some people tune out and go over there just for this halftime performance and then come back to the game, but we'll see. But Micah, just general thoughts. Is it wrong for Americans to be upset about Bad Bunny as a performer at the Super Bowl?
It's kind of a loaded question, Connor. Is it wrong? I don't know if it's wrong. I would just say let's all take a step back, examine our priorities. I don't know. Personally, I've got a lot of work to do the rest of the day. I've got a family that I get to lead and love and take care of. So I am absolutely not going to get that upset about whoever the halftime performer is. There's just other things that take priority over that. Maybe you can be miffed about it and you can be frustrated, but I would say it might be crossing a line if you're really letting it upset you who's performing at the halftime show or not. I do understand the concept of I'd like to watch the halftime show with my family, and I'd like to not worry about crazy stuff flashing on the scene. But I think that's kind of been an issue with the Super Bowl as a whole of how family friendly is it, and now it's becoming more political, being mixed with how family friendly it is. But all of that to say, I don't know if it's wrong to be upset about it. I think we should all just kind of take a step back and examine our priorities and what we have going on, and hopefully we don't let it get to us too much.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't think it's wrong. Everybody's can have their opinion. I just don't think we need to like throw a hoopla about the whole thing. If you want to tune out, tune out. If you want to boycott the entire Super Bowl, boycott.
Connor,
I don't think it's going to make a massive difference. Maybe it will. I would say I think America is just kind of split on this in different ways. Like a small portion is like, yeah, we're going to boycott. A smaller portion is like, if you boycott, you're a bigot and you're a hater and all of that. And then the majority of America is like you, Micah. We don't have the just mind.
I hope the majority of America feels like this.
I think
like,
97%
we got bigger fish to fry. You know what I mean?
I think 97% of America is like, I just want to watch the game. I want to watch the commercials. The halftime show is going to be on my TV. Like, even if I'm up and getting food or something.
It's an American holiday. Can we just get along? Can we just stop getting so frustrated? Can we just enjoy the Super Bowl? Like, like most Americans enjoy the Super Bowl. But Connor, can we talk about Jelly Roll's speech at the
Yes,
Grammys, please?
absolutely. Because this was the best moment of the Grammys and
I agree.
super powerful. So I want to play a clip of Jelly Roll, the country singer, coming up and accepting his award for Best Contemporary Country Album for his album Beautifully Broken. Here we go.
I know they're going to try to kick me off here, so just let me try to get this out. First of all, Jesus, I hear you and I'm listening, Lord. I am listening, Lord. Second of all, I want to thank my beautiful wife. I would have never changed my life without you. I'd have ended up dead or in jail. I'd have killed myself if it wasn't for you and Jesus. I thank you for that. There was a time in my life, y'all, that I was broken. That's why I wrote this album. I didn't think I had a chance, y'all. There was days that I thought the darkest things. I was a horrible human. There was a moment in my life that all I had was a Bible this big and a radio the same size and a 6x8 cell. And I believed that those two things could change my life. I believed that music had the power to change my life and God had the power to change my life. And I want to tell y'all right now, Jesus is for everybody. Jesus is not owned by one political party. Jesus is not owned by no music label. Jesus is Jesus, and anybody can have a relationship with him. I love you, Lord.
Micah,
Incredible.
that was powerful. And he's not wrong about any of it. Jesus is not owned by a political party. Jesus is not owned by a record label. Jesus is all powerful. Jesus gave Jelly Roll that moment, the talents that he has to go up there and glorify him. And that I just loved. I thought it was incredible. What'd you think?
You want to unite people in love, in something lasting, something with a foundation. You tell them that. Repent and turn to Jesus. That's where change comes. There are a lot of people on the right side of the aisle and a lot of people on the left side of the aisle that need to repent and turn to Jesus. Has nothing to do with what the political party is. And I really love what he had to say. I just think his story is powerful. I think it pulls us all in when you have kind of that drugs and rock and roll story. You hit the bottom, you're in prison, and Jesus changes your life. I mean, it's just something that I think a lot of people are drawn to, myself included. I mean, I just think it's really inspiring. I'm really grateful that he's using his platform to make a difference. His music has changed. His life has changed. I just think it's wonderful.
His physique has changed. I mean, he's lost hundreds of pounds. Like God is moving in his heart. And I don't know how strong his faith is at this point. And he's talked openly about like how he's just trying to learn the Bible and grow it because he was basically faithless just a few years ago. And then,
but being vulnerable about that is encouraging to people too. He doesn't have all the answers. I don't have all of the answers.
No, but it's awesome.
It's cool. It's cool to see him kind of walk through that journey with all of us.
All that to say, that is a redeeming moment for the Grammys, in my opinion. Like if you look at all the negative things that came out of it, all the things that are very of the world, very fleshly in the Grammys, and then you go to that and you're like, that might have been the best and most viral part of the whole show because it was different and it was God glorifying. And then zooming in on Reba McEntire, just smiling from ear to ear because she's like, this is just truth and his life has changed. She's known him since the beginning of his career when he was not like this. We are seeing a redeemed man.
Amen.
And hopefully, the prayer would be that impacts many lives. And I just want to leave y'all with this verse right here. 1 Peter 4:10 and 11 says, and I'm speaking about this because it's making me think of Jelly Roll. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Whoever speaks, as one who speaks oracles of God. Whoever serves, as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. To him belongs the glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. That was a really good discussion. It's just so interesting how we're talking about a Grammys award show and the Super Bowl, but the cultural implications just in this time where everything just feels so heated. Jelly Roll kind of gave the entire culture just a different perspective, and you're not hearing it very much because the path is narrow.
Yeah.
The way is narrow that leads to life. Most people are going to choose a different path, and Jelly Roll's choosing the unique one, and that's why it stands out. And so it's beautiful to see. Thanks for taking us through all of that. And I, for one, no matter what happened, I, for one, am very much looking forward to the Super Bowl, no matter what all the controversies are.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So I'm going to do a geopolitical, political, and cultural roundup here. All right, let's talk about the Epstein files. So the Epstein files, the Epstein document releases are still getting a lot of attention because they just released a whole lot more, millions, actually. They include references to a wide range of well-known people from politics and business and entertainment. Names that have publicly been talked about for years as possibly in them are in them. And some people are in them a whole lot. People like Bill Clinton, photos of Bill Clinton with Jeffrey Epstein. You got Donald Trump in some correspondence, Prince Andrew, a lot of things happening in Great Britain right now over this leak. Elon Musk is in there, and other billionaires and media figures show up in different record logs and different contact records, emails and texts and things like that. So the Justice Department says millions of pages have now been released, and some professional and political fallout is starting to surface because more and more names are popping up. Names that we did expect, names that we did not expect. But the big clarification that I want to give, and that we've given every time that we talk about the Epstein files, is that political experts or legal experts specifically, they keep repeating this, that being named is not the same thing as being charged. Being named in them is not necessarily guilt, okay? Jeffrey Epstein was very connected. He was not a good guy, but I think one thing we have to do is people are complicated. So just because Jeffrey Epstein had a friend in a correspondence with somebody doesn't necessarily mean that it had to do with what he actually did that was wrong and evil, right? He could just have a relationship with somebody. We have to remember that people are complex. I'm not defending anybody that's popped up. I think it's not a good look if your name is in any of this. And I think that you got to re-envision like who you have in your life. But at the same time, just because you're mentioned doesn't mean that you're guilty. Connor, how have you taken all this and like what have you seen as all this information has been released recently?
It's been interesting to see some of the names, like you mentioned the names that a lot of people already know were kind of associated, but there's other ones like Casey Wasserman, who is literally in charge of the 2028 Olympics. He's big guy, big agent in Hollywood. He's supposed to be planning the LA Olympics, and now they're about to kick him off the board of that because they're like, he's not just in the emails, he's like flirting with girls in the email. Like it depends on the content of the emails, and people like Howard Lutnick, who said that they had cut off communications with Epstein. And then a few years later, it turns out they were actually emailing him and trying to find out if they could party with him or get a business relationship with him or whatnot. These people really who, you're right, they're not guilty necessarily of anything. They're not being found guilty, but they were talking to a guy who had been found as a child predator in 2008. And this is years afterwards, and they're communicating with him. It's true. It's, man, if you step into a puddle of mud and you come out a little bit muddy, you're kind of dirty in that sense. So, and at least in some people's eyes. And so it's guilt by association in a social circumstance. I mean, CBS is about to fire Peter Attia like 5 days into his new contract with them because he had emails with Epstein. It's just not great.
Yep. So let's talk about the Clintons, Bill and Hillary. So on the Clinton side, the tone has shifted towards cooperation kind of all of a sudden, right? They were going to be held in contempt by Congress because they were refusing to show up and testify. Now that has changed because some of what they wanted, the standards they were met, it's going to be public. There's going to be certain people there, certain people not there, but they are going to show up and testify. So more recent updates show movement towards cooperating to avoid dragging things out legally. The questions surrounding them around the Clintons' involvement here mostly relate to past associations, travel records, and what level of knowledge that they actually had of what Epstein was doing. So at this point, it's largely procedural. It's not, they're not going to leave in handcuffs, but Republicans want to make an example of them. Yeah. And to a certain extent, I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm just saying if the shoe was on the other foot, I know exactly what the other party would do too. It's just one of those things. I was just reading Politico this morning. I mean, in Politico's, they definitely have a bias, but they are the most connected news source in D.C., really kind of by far. And there's a lot of Democrats publicly and privately like, can we just be done with the Clintons? They bring, I was just reading this morning, just so many people saying like they bring so much baggage whenever their names come up. Bill had his series of controversies whenever he was president too, right? And so there are a lot of things coming out of that. So the Clintons is one thing. Let's talk about Iran. So Iran, negotiations, military developments. I'm going to run through this real quick. Iran is still one of the biggest pressure points right now internationally. There are negotiations happening behind the scenes around specifically Iran's nuclear program. Again, America bombed that and set them way back last year. But at the same time, there's some real military tension right now. Earlier this week, U.S. forces shot down an Iranian drone that was moving towards a U.S. aircraft carrier after warnings were ignored. I was reading this morning about the specific type of drone it was. It's a one-way attack drone. So you don't see those drones unless something's going to happen, right? It's not like an observation drone or whatever it might be. It's a drone that flies into and detonates. Like it's supposed to explode. They're not trying to get the drone back, right?
It's a
So you see
drone.
that and you know exactly what kind of drone that is. And so that was headed towards a U.S. aircraft carrier. And around the same time, Iranian gunboats approached a U.S. flagged oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz, and a U.S. Navy destroyer escorted it safely away. But that stretch of water really matters. And this is kind of what hey, if something happens with Iran, if that strait gets cut off, well, it's a huge percentage of the world's oil passes through there. And even small encounters could shut that down and like cut off a lot of the world's oil supply. So you're not trying to see a lot of conflict in that area. So there are scheduled talks coming up on Friday, but now Iran is like, well, we want to change venues. We want certain countries there, not certain countries there. But from the American side, this seems to be protective and defensive, focus on keeping the shipping lanes open. But talks have not completely stopped either. So we'll see what happens. Trump has been reluctant, seemingly, even though, even like leaders in Saudi Arabia have been like, Trump just needs to bomb Iran. Like if we're actually going to see like regime change, like there are significant countries in that region basically begging the U.S. to do something more. And for some reason, Trump has been reluctant to do more. So we'll see how all that turns out.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what his decision is going to be. These talks on Friday are huge.
Yes.
It will basically determine if we're going to move forward in negotiations or if Trump's going to bomb them. It's going to come down to that. If they agree to what the U.S. is saying they need to agree to, the pressure's on. There's literally an armada sitting off the coast of Iran, just like there was sitting off the coast of Venezuela earlier this month, with Trump just being like, I will take you out, essentially, to the leadership of Iran. Anybody who killed protesters, I'm going to take you out specifically, and we're going to topple your regime. But Trump's trying to avoid that. He wants talks to go through. He wants to help the Iranian people, but he also wants to protect American interests. I know that's the case, and he doesn't want to send troops into harm's way if he doesn't have to.
No, yeah. I think no matter what your political affiliation is, the vast majority of Americans would agree that Iran's not great and they don't treat their people super well. But at the same time, we don't want more war, more innocent bloodshed. So prayerfully, this can be solved through diplomacy. Okay, let's talk about Don Lemon real quick and the FACE Act specifically. I want to talk about that. So Don Lemon, that situation has turned into a debate about the difference between journalism and protests. And if you're a journalist, are you immune to maybe what these protesters, there's less argument, there's less bipartisan argument right now over, okay, so this church was stormed in Minneapolis a couple weeks ago. Don Lemon was a part of it, rushed on stage, interviewed the pastor. The pastor apparently has some sort of ties with ICE. Anyway, they were just doing their normal Sunday church service. All these videos and pictures surface of these protesters running in, shouting vulgarities, and basically disrupting the church service, right? And so Don Lemon was a part of that. So Lemon was arrested by federal agents and faces civil rights charges related to his ties to the protest. He says he was there strictly as a journalist, and he's going to plead not guilty. Connor, you and I were already talking about this. This is just going to grow his platform significantly. Like him getting arrested only helps him as far as like his audience and his growth. But part of the legal backdrop that I want to talk about is the FACE Act, which stands for Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. Okay. So it's a federal law from the 90s that makes it illegal to use force to threats or use threats or physical obstruction to interfere with people who are entering places like a Planned Parenthood, but it also applies to houses of worship, to any house of worship, a mosque, a synagogue, a church. So supporters of the arrest say if someone crosses from reporting into interference, the law should apply the same to everybody, fearing that if it's allowed, more places of worship can be raided in the name of protest. I think that that's my personal concern of like, if you just let this go, then I think that we're going to see more of that happening, that you could just be in church and protesters can just rush in and try to ruin it. Right? Like there should be a way to stop that, right? But then critics say that, applying the law like this to journalists risks blurring the line between covering an event and participating in it. And I think that that's what the trial is going to come down to, because the FACE Act is the FACE Act, right? So like they have something to charge him on. Was he premeditating this? Was he truly a part of the protest? Or did he just kind of join in like as a journalist? That's what the trial is going to come down to.
Yeah, it is. And obviously he's always been kind of polarizing because one of the faces of CNN back in the day in the first Trump era, and very liberal in his ideologies. And so a lot of people were like, yeah, he's getting what he deserves. But ultimately, there's some constitutional law that comes into here.
To look at the law here, because we want journalistic freedom, but we want freedom to worship too. I think most people are going to agree with both of those things. So, we just have to let it all play out and see see what happens. But again, there's just been less argument bipartisan-wise about the actual protesters that got arrested because, okay, they clearly violated this act, right?
Yes.
But Don Lemon, as a journalist, does he get different treatment? That's what they're going to decide.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I'm interested to see how it goes.
All right, so let me give a wrap up and just a general spiritual application here as I was tying all of these stories together. So when you zoom out of all of this, Connor Jones, the common thread is how fast we're pushed to react. I'm thinking about this even with the shooting of Alex Preddy and Renee Good in Minnesota and all the protests and immigration and deportation. We're pushed to react quickly from one video, from one headline. Social media just explodes, and then people lock into this strong opinion before all the facts are released. We released that episode last week, and there was more about Alex Preddy that came out after we released the episode, after we recorded it. We are doing our absolute best to report on what we know, but there's more that's even going to come out on that story that we don't know yet. And there's definitely more to every single thing that we've discussed that's going to come out. But there is this thing in culture right now that we've got to rush to conclusions and anger, being against, being for, from just watching a video or two, right? There's just more to the story than that, right? And that's just the social media age that we're living in. But Scripture calls us to a steadier pace and to not rush to judgment, I think. James 1:19 says, "Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger." Proverbs 18:13 says, "If one gives an answer before he hears, it's his folly and it's his shame." The takeaway this week is simple for me that I want to share with all of you. Before reposting something, arguing online, or forming a hard stance, just pause for a second. Just take a beat. Say a prayer, right? And ask if you actually know the full story and if your tone reflects Christ as much as your opinion does. Maybe ask, does my opinion need to be shared right now? Is this going to contribute positively to the discussion and conversation? I also want to just say this on a personal level. I do not subscribe to the idea that silence is violence, okay? Or that watching one short video online suddenly gives us full context and perfect understanding of what happens, or perfect understanding. That just isn't true most of the time. So wisdom sometimes looks like slowing down, listening, learning, and admitting that we do not have every detail yet. So we can stay informed without letting outrage control us, and we can care about truth without losing our humility or without losing our cool. In a loud cultural and political moment like right now, we just seem to be in a really loud climate right now. Sometimes the strongest witness is not shouting louder than everybody else or being the first to share your opinion. It's wisdom, it's patience, and it's grace.
Yeah, that's so true. There's so much we can take from that, just slowing down. Like we say a lot of the times, just pause, slow down. Don't post immediately. Don't say something immediately. Think it through, pray it through, all of that. It made me think, speaking of Jelly Roll from earlier, after the Grammys, he was asked about the ICE stuff and all the political things.
Why didn't you say anything?
Yeah. He was like, honestly, I don't know enough. I don't really sit on my phone. I don't sit on social media. I'm just a dumb redneck. And I was like, you know what? Props to that.
He's probably enjoying his life more than most of us.
Yeah. Well, and just the self-awareness to be like, why does anybody care what I think? Like, that's what Ricky Gervais said a few years ago at the Golden Globes. Remember when he called out all the celebrities? He's like, nobody cares what y'all think. Stop doing it. So I applaud it. Okay, Micah, thank you for that. Let's answer a quick mailbag question we got this past week. Vaughn wrote in and he said, when you pick certain words and you repeat multiple times with quite a bit of vocal intensity, you take sides rather than play the middle and report the news. So are you news or are you commentary? And I think he's speaking specifically about our conversation last week with Dr. Ryan Dennison on Alex Preddy on last week's episode. So Micah, are we news or are we commentary?
No, you're going to make me go first. I appreciate Vaughn's email here because I think it's actually something that we should continue to call out and kind of quantify and explain. There are people who tune in every week who listen for the first time. There's been people who have listened every week and have grown with us as we process through the news, as we question our own biases, as we process through exactly what we're telling you all to process through of, hey, run to Scripture, not to your political bias or feeling or opinion, and be willing to be challenged in what it is that you believe and listen to somebody who believes differently than you, right? And how do we invite God into news consumption? Like, those are the main kind of key points that we keep drawing back to. I would say this, yes, we're news and commentary. You guys would get kind of bored listening to our show if we just said, hey, here's what happened, on to the next thing, right? But our commentary is, we truly seek to have our commentary rooted in Scripture and not one political affiliation or belief over other. Connor and I have our own biases and lens that we look through things. Every single person does, but we do lay it at the feet of Jesus consistently, and we're very prayerful and fervent in our discussions and in our preparation to view each story as it comes, try to take in all the facts, and try to equip our audience with the details and with the facts. But ultimately, we just want to point people back to Jesus and say there is another way between getting mad or between burying your head in the sand. There's somewhere in the middle of that, and we can figure that out together.
Yeah, I just would reiterate that too. I think it's a great question, and I'm happy to always talk about it too.
Good one.
Yeah, commentary is truth-based, is what I would say. Truth with a capital T. It's going to always point back to the Word of God, and that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to, pivot for one political party or the other, or always go after one. No, we call out both sides, and we're not just a political thing either. Obviously, we love talking about music and movies and TV and all of that, and providing.
We also don't claim to be experts. Like we've never claimed. I mean, Connor and I don't have our PhDs. We have a lot of our audience is older and more wise than us, has lived more life than we have, and we acknowledge that. We don't claim to be experts, but we're thankful that God's given us this platform that we can grow together.
Absolutely. Yeah, great question, Vaughn. Thank you for that. You guys can always send us questions at culturebrief@denisenforum.org or shoot us in a message on Instagram at culturebriefpodcast. Go follow us over there. Catch some clips of us as well. Okay, Micah, let's jump into the check-in section.
Let's do it. Let's roll. So Trump and India's Prime Minister Modi each announced on their social media platforms on the same day that they had reached an agreement between the two countries. The two largest democracies in the world is what people call them. India and the USA have entered a trade agreement to lower American tariffs on Indian goods from 50% to 18%. That's a big dip. Trump said that India would drop its tariffs on some U.S. goods, buy $500 million in American products, and stop buying Russian oil, none of which the last part Modi mentioned. I think that's all being worked out on the back end. That's been Trump's biggest thing. He's trying to cut off Russia in order to stop the war. And so a big part is India purchases a lot of Russian oil. That keeps them going. That's what this trade deal, I think Trump is trying to accomplish in that. Okay, also, the government shutdown has ended. We mentioned that at the beginning, but lawmakers did reach a last-minute agreement that brought the government shutdown. It was a partial government shutdown to an end, reopening all the federal agencies and restoring pay for furloughed workers who were just not even really furloughed, like for day and a half. The deal is temporary, though, which means bigger debates and budget debates are still ahead, specifically around DHS and ICE agents. So it's going to be a lot of negotiating on Capitol Hill between Republicans and Democrats and Trump over the next 2 weeks. Hopefully they can come to an agreement and we can fully fund the government for the rest of the year and stop talking about government shutdowns, which is, again, we will say it over and over again until the cows come home. Government shutdowns are a travesty.
Yes.
And only hurt people. They don't really help people. All right. Finally, Catherine O'Hara. She passed away at 71. She was best known for her roles as the mom in Home Alone. She was in Beetlejuice, and especially she was known recently for kind of a career resurgence as Moira Rose in Schitt's Creek. It's interesting because she plays a character in that show that is in the last phases of her career, and she's trying to resurrect her career, kind of.
Yeah.
And in the same way, that show did the same thing for her, and it's probably what she's going to be most known for. She was hilarious in that show. Tributes from fellow actors and fans have poured in, just remembering her sharp comedic timing and her versatility, and really, she seemed to be really well liked and loved, and left a great legacy. So rest in peace, Catherine.
Uncontroversial Hollywood star who's just beloved. And it's
I mean, she had her opinions and beliefs, but like she did her job and she impacted a lot of people, and she was great. I mean, just across the board, people were sad to see her go.
Yeah, it was a sad one. She was so funny, man. I'm gonna miss seeing her. She's supposed to do season 2 of The Studio, one of my favorite shows, and now she won't be on that. So that's really sad. Something else, Disney. New CEO over there, Josh D'Amaro, has been named as the successor to Bob Iger to take over one of the most influential and biggest companies in the world. This is a massive deal because of how much Disney impacts not just American culture, but world culture and younger generations coming up. This is a big deal. Iger, I mean, he's known as one of the best CEOs in history. He's written books about it. Of course, his biggest setback was he did not appoint a good successor back in 2020, and that's when Bob Chapek came in. Only lasted 2 years because it is a tough job, and Chapek kind of dealt with the political woes of 2020 and COVID and the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, and it just didn't go well. So now Iger was brought back in by the board. He's been there for the last 3-4 years and was told, you got to find a successor. It seems he found 2 potential candidates, Dana Walden and Josh D'Amaro. They've been pitting at each other for the last 2 years. It's been kind of a big saga in the Disney world. Probably going to get its own TV show or book, and Josh D'Amaro won out. Man, he's got to control a movie studio, TV studio, theme parks, ESPN, ABC, all this stuff, and it's a big deal just because of how much it's going to impact our kids and the content that comes out of there. Is he going to lean more progressive? Is he going to try to go back to traditional family values, the way that Disney used to be? I hope he does that and goes back to the more conservative values there and kind of pulls away from what Disney was headed towards and that they've pulled back on already.
It doesn't necessarily have to be conservative values. It just doesn't need to be like overtly one way or another. You know what I mean? I think that's probably the most logical path forward. I was reading this morning not this morning, I think maybe a couple days ago, on The Morning Brew, which is a really interesting email newsletter you can sign up for. They write up the news in kind of a fun way to consume, I think is like a good way to put it. But they were talking about how the Disney theme parks have, since Josh D'Amaro has been over them, have consistently outperformed any projections, and has kind of been the anchor of Disney's funding.
It has.
Like a lot of their budget has come from parks when other parts of Disney's business has been struggling.
It's been there.
And so it makes sense that he took over because he's doing a good job. So good for him.
Yeah, it's been so profitable even with economic woes. He's still managed to get people to come to the parks and pay more for fast passes and stuff. They're still coming. And it was just kind of, it was clear to the board, I think.
Let's do Tune In. Connor, what else? What's going on? Tell us.
Man, Micah, I love when the drums start playing and you hear that Olympic theme music start to play. Yeah, that's cool. That John Williams theme come in, because the Olympics start, actually, I think they start on Wednesday or Thursday of this week with like some preliminary sports, but the opening ceremonies for the Milano Cortina Winter Olympics will be on Friday. They're broadcasting live at 1:40 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. They'll play again that night. But dude, it's going to be awesome. I love the Olympics. I love the Winter Olympics. Micah, do you have a favorite Winter Olympic sport?
USA, baby.
Just USA.
Just USA. Whatever it is, if an American's competing, I'm rooting for them. We also have the Super Bowl coming up. Tune in. Oh, yeah. Seattle Seahawks versus New England Patriots at 5:30 Central Time on NBC. Enjoy the Super Bowl with your friends and family. It's a beautiful American pastime. Eat a lot of junk food if it makes you happy. Just enjoy the day. People always say that Americans should have Monday off because the Super Bowl Sunday is always such a party, and it should be a national holiday, a federal holiday. Maybe one day it will be. But thank you for joining us.
This is our message to our bosses right here. Hey guys, would y'all give us Monday off so we can enjoy the Super Bowl fully?
I love it. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of Culture Brief, a Dennis Informed podcast. All articles and videos mentioned will be linked in the show notes. And if you enjoyed today's episode, would you please subscribe, and rate and review the show, and share it with a friend? Why don't you? And we'll see you next Thursday.
See y'all.